Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm super excited because Rachelle Anne Miller did a bonus release with this adorable Scarecrow digital stamp. Now today I'm going to color the stamp in, and this video contains a lot of coloring because this image is quite large. However, I really liked it, so I couldn't wait to get playing with this newly released digital stamp. And so I'm going to color this image using my Copic markers. I printed this image onto Transotype perfect coloring paper. I currently own a laser printer, which is handy, and it works for Copic coloring and watercoloring. But before I had an inkjet printer from Heffy, and well, that worked as well for Copic markers. I didn't got to try the watercoloring because my printer stopped working after 8 years, so I cannot complain about that. But well, Copic coloring worked. Now, from what I saw on YouTube while I was looking for a good printer and whether my printer would work when I had the inkjet one, it depends on printer, whether everything is an option or not. Really strange, and there is no logic in my personal opinion, but I am not an expert neither in printers. But just in case you are like me and you are wondering and thoughtful about whether your printer was right for the medium that you want to color with, Rachelle Anne Miller has an adorable free digital stamp on her site. It's a giraffe image and it's super cute. So just if you're also loving Rachelle Anne Miller's designs and other digital stamps, try to print out a freebie on the paper that you like using and try your medium with that. That's how I tried it. With digital printing and all those things, digital stamps, and well, it worked for the Copic marker, so I was really happy, and I wasn't going to buy a laser printer, not at all. But since the printer gave up on me, well, it was a good excuse, although it was a big investment, the one that I got, because the cheapest one wasn't available at that time, and since I was already on this team, I needed to be able to print, so I just took the cheapest one available, but it was still quite expensive. But just in case, don't buy a printer just for this. Try it out with your printer. Maybe you have the same like me, and Copic coloring is definitely an option, and maybe if you're lucky, then watercoloring is also an option, so why not? And if you're not sure about your printer and you printed it out, try heat setting it first. It's something that a lot of people also recommended to me when I had my inkjet printer. Just heat set it, let it sit for a day, and then try it out, so maybe that works. In the meantime, I've colored quite a bit, and if you're curious about the Copic combo that I'm using everywhere, I listed them on my blog post for you. Easy reference, also for each of the parts of this image, so all the blue is together, straw, yellow, red, and so on. So I already colored in the straw part of this Scarecrow, and I don't know if you saw me doing it, but on the face of this adorable image, I decided to sort of mimic a bit of the straw, because in my opinion the Scarecrow, well, the base and the face, it's all from straw, it's just a bowl of straw. I just drew in some extra lines with my Copic markers to sort of mimic the straw there. Now for the jacket of this adorable image, I decided to go with blues, and I must admit, this color combination, I love it, and I plan on making a baby card, boy themed baby card. Not that that is important, but yeah, I really love this color combination, and I don't know if I used it in the past. If I did, it was an accident, but then I was really smart. Now I did, and I just told myself to really use this combination again, because I think it's stunning. It took me a few layers to be completely happy with the blend, however, but as I said in previous videos, this paper, Transotype perfect coloring paper, really allows me to keep adding layers until I'm happy. And if at a certain point this paper doesn't want to take on the ink anymore, it is sort of oversaturated at that stage, it's not gonna bleed, it's just not going to take on the ink anymore. Let it sit for a while, or if you're like me and you're impatient, then use your heat gun, heat set it, and work from there again, building up your colors. You know, that's all an option, and that's really, really handy about this paper. Now the blue I'm also going to use on the pants, as you can see here. And I try to sort of do a bit all at the same time. Now that doesn't always work. Also, very often I forget to do a second color on one of the areas that I already started on as well. So it's just what you prefer. You can do it all at once. You can do it for each of the parts individually, and so on. I'm also trying to have the shadows on the left side of this image. It's not something that you need to do. It's also not something that you need to stick to throughout the coloring. If you decide to add some more shadows on the other side of the image, then that's perfectly fine. You can also do some sort of a centered light source, and then you have normally on left and right side a bit of the darker colors, so anything goes as long as you're having fun. As you know me, I am coloring from darkest to lightest, but if you prefer adding a base coat or working from lightest to darkest and going back and forth, that's perfectly fine. You do you do what makes you feel happy, what gives you the end result that you prefer. And from time to time when I go outside the lines, I have my colorless blender nearby. It's one of those markers that I use on every card. Just because I go outside the lines, I make tiny mistakes, and they are fixable with this, so why wouldn't I? And then we're on to the reds. I wanted to have some sort of a pastel-y vibe also for the red color combination, so I just went with a really soft color, and I am doing that for all of the tiny areas that are patched onto the jacket and the pants and all those things. Just in case you're wondering, because I know that this is sped through, I did one time a real life coloring video, but this one is sped through 3.5 times, so I'm coloring way slower than this. And in total this card took me like an hour and 20 minutes, which is long and short at the same time. It's long because, well, it's a clean and simple card, and therefore it's a quite long process it has been, but it was just because this image is quite large and the coloring took me like 50 minutes, and then I have to figure out what I was going to do with this image, because let me just be clear, I'm one of those people that first start coloring and then sees whatever I need to do next, or however I can turn it into a card whenever I color something. So but that's what works for me so far, so that's what I'm doing. And on the other side, it took me, well, not that long, because I could also have, no, I couldn't, but imagine making a crazy stunning background as well. With Copics, with your distressings, with anything, then it would have taken even longer. So it depends on how you look at it, but I'm really glad with how it turned out, so that's the most important thing. Here also on the head, I'm also all about reusing colors, and today is quite a colorful image. I think I used blues and reds and yellows, well, but for the browns I sort of try to reuse markers that I already used. In this case, a big part of the straw was repeated in the head, except for the darkest color that I changed, and then the darkest color also returns in the wood, and so on and so on, you know. Just having two different markers or one different marker can already give you a completely different combination, and I just think that's one of the beauties of these markers, that you don't need to have them all. And if you extend your Copic combinations, then I think it's always handy to look at the markers you already have to sort of see from there where you can add one marker to have many more possibilities. So for the flowers, I decided to grab the yellow again and the red again and just have those colors return, because I didn't want to add any more colors except maybe for greens, but in the end I didn't ended up using greens anywhere. But it could have also have been added. I had it on the side ready to go, but well, I didn't need it. So here as well on the bird, just using the same yellow as before and trying to have a shadow again on the left side. Again, this isn't a necessity to keep your shadows all on the left or on the right side, just have fun. And here I used a bit of that red again. And then some of the details on the flowers. And I don't know if you already saw it, but normally I start with the hair, because it's one of the hardest parts of the images I find personally. Now today I actually postponed it, and well, I'm lucky, I think. But initially I thought that this hair looked quite easy to do. There are lots of guiding lines. There isn't a lot of hair to color in because we have the head over there, which also helps because a tiny area, well, it's easier to fill up than a bigger one. So that's why I postponed it. But I think it turned out fine. Also, I'm reusing the brown combination from the wood on the hair here. And then later on the board that is hanging from the Scarecrow, I'm also going to use this brown combination. I first thought of creating a bit of a lighter brown by leaving out the darker markers, so you will see that on the markers that I was using initially. But then I still ended up adding a bit of the more dark brown just to get the same kind of shadowing as on the rest of the image. So here I start on the E57, and to sort of help me with that wood look, I followed the lines as I did with the hair. These lines really help you, and I see them as guidelines, so I just went over them and I didn't took on the corners, but then on my second layer I decided to use those lines as well to give it a bit of a darker look. Just again to help with the depth with dimension. And here I was less worried about adding shadows on the left side, so I sort of skipped it here. I do not necessarily have an explanation for that, but I do like how it ended up. So that's the most important thing, as I always say. So that's what I did here. And then for the inside of the board, I decided to try to mimic a chalkboard. And then I could white heat emboss a sentiment like it was written with chalk on it. So I just took a few warm gray markers and I scribbled a bit on it. I went around it with my second marker and then ended up with my lightest one. And I wanted it to be a bit more rough than just having a nice transition to really represent the chalky board. So I did that, also 2 layers here. I tried to avoid the flower. I forgot about it while coloring all the flowers because it's a tiny detail. It's something that Rachelle Anne Miller adds so wonderfully. It's a tiny detail that returns somewhere and it doesn't need to be there, but it's such a nice addition to have it over there, the flower. Everything hangs together this way and I just love it. So I colored it the same as the flowers on the head. And once I added all the details, the coloring was finished, and then it was time to create a card with it. Now, for the card making process, I ended up using the A2 layers die from Waffle Flowers, the biggest one, to cut out my panel. This way I had an A2 sized panel. And then the second biggest and the fourth biggest rectangle to create some sort of a frame. And I used the Petite Gingham paper pad for my favorite things, one of my favorites, and I took the red one. Now another option was also the yellow one, and I wasn't sure about it, so I texted many friends, my mother, my colleagues from work, to ask them which one they preferred, and more people said the red than the yellow, but there were also a lot of votes for yellow, so that could have been the case as well. Now for the sentiment, I'm partially using a sentiment from the My Little Angel from Heavy Doodle. I just need to thank you. So I masked it off the rest, and then I inked it up using Versamark clear embossing ink. Now the embossing powder, as said previously, white embossing powder to represent chalk. And this one is a super fine detail from Ranger, which is really handy for the script of this stamp. Once I removed all the excess embossing powder, I could heat set the sentiment, and then I could start assembling the card. So first of all, I had this tiny embossing powder thingy that flew a bit of the sentiment, so I fixed that, scratched it off with my craft knife, and then I could add my panel on top of my card base just using some adhesive roller. And then I'm making sure that I'm placing it straight on there. If I have any excess from my card base, then I'm just trimming it off with my paper trimmer. And then I'm going to add the frame that I cut out using the A2 layers die. Now for the frame, I wanted to add a bit of dimension, but I didn't want to cut a score tape in half to fit behind the frame. So I decided to use these Darice foam strips, which are really thin strips. They are super handy if you want to make a shaker card. But I just was lazy today, and I added these strips on the back of my frame. I covered it completely to help it when it will go in mail to not get ruined. And once I remove the backings, I try to place this frame as straight as possible on top of my card. And then you can add so many things if you want to. You can add embellishments, you can add glossy accents, you can add stickers, anything you can think of, you can add to your card. Now, since this is a clean and simple card, I just added glossy accents to the nose of the Scarecrow because I thought it was a cute idea. And then after adding the glossy accents, this card would be completely finished. It was a really fun image to color in, and I really enjoyed it. It took me a bit, but as I said, it was worth it. It's quite large. It's also completely filling up my A2 sized card, so that means something. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and of course that you like the end result. Don't forget, this is a newly released digital stamp, so if you're curious, go to the Rachelle Anne Miller website and then you can have some fun with it as well. I want to thank you all for stopping by and taking the time to watch this video. I truly appreciate it. If you liked it, you can always give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for stopping by. I wish you all an amazing day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!